You know that feeling when you're about to start a big project in the garage and you realize the air compressor you've been using for years is just coughing and sputtering, and you start wondering if it's time to upgrade? I've been in that spot more than once, and the last thing I want is to drop a few $100s on a machine that ends up gathering dust because it's either too weak for the job or way more than I need. That hesitation is exactly why I dug into the two-stage, 5 HP models that promise continuous duty and tried to separate the hype from the real, day-to-day usefulness. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When I first heard about the Ingersoll Rand 2340L5V, the name alone felt reassuring. Ingersoll Rand has been a staple in industrial shops for decades, and the two-stage label suggested it could handle both low-volume, high-speed tasks and the heavy-duty, high-pressure jobs without breaking a sweat. The 60-gallon vertical tank also sounded generous enough to keep the motor from cycling on and off constantly, which is something anyone with a busy workshop knows can wear out a compressor faster than you'd expect. But the real question is, does it actually fit the everyday needs of a serious DIYer or a small business that can't justify a full-size shop floor unit? To answer that, I tried to picture the scenarios where you'd reach for a compressor like this. Think of a weekend car restoration project where you need to inflate tires, blow off rust, and power a spray gun for a fresh coat of paint. Or picture a woodworking shop that uses air-driven routers and nailers for quick assembly. Those are the kinds of tasks where a two-stage machine shines because you can tap into the low-pressure side for tools that don't need a lot of force, and switch to the high-pressure side when you need that extra punch for, say, a paint sprayer. The first practical strength that stands out is the durability claim: individually cast cylinders, an overhung crankshaft, and a one-piece connecting rod. In a compressor, those design choices translate to fewer moving parts that can wear out, and a sturdier frame that can tolerate the constant vibration of a 5 HP motor running at 230V. For anyone who runs the compressor for several hours a day like a small autobody shop, the 100% continuous duty promise isn't just marketing fluff. It means the motor won't overheat after a half hour of blasting paint. It can keep going until the tank hits the set pressure, then coast while the pump rests. Another real-world advantage is the vertical tank layout. A 60-gallon tank sits on a small footprint, which is a big win if your garage is already packed with tools. The vertical orientation also helps the oil drain back into the sump more efficiently, reducing the risk of oil foaming, a common nuisance that can cause a compressor to short-cycle. In practice, that means you'll hear a steadier hum rather than a frantic series of starts and stops, and you'll waste less energy on repressurizing the tank. Now, let's talk about the hidden trade-offs. Two-stage compressors are inherently more complex than single-stage units. They have an extra valve and a second piston chamber, which means there are more points that could potentially need maintenance. If you're not comfortable checking oil levels, cleaning filters, and occasionally inspecting the pressure switch, you might find yourself dealing with a service call sooner than you'd like. The 5 HP motor also draws a solid amount of power, so you'll need a dedicated 230V circuit. Trying to plug it into a standard 120V outlet will just fry the breaker and leave you stuck. Another practical weakness is the noise level. Two-stage machines tend to be louder than their single-stage cousins because the high-pressure pump runs at a higher speed. In a residential setting, you'll likely need to add some ear protection or a sound-dampening enclosure if you plan to run it for long periods. It's not a deal-breaker, but it's a factor that many first-time buyers overlook until they hear the compressor roar at 7 a.m. on a Saturday. So, who should actually buy the 2340L5V? If you run a small to medium-sized shop that relies on air tools for a majority of the workflow, automotive repair, paint spraying, metal fabrication, this compressor checks the boxes. The continuous duty rating means you can keep the tank topped off while you're sanding, welding, and moving parts around, without worrying about the motor overheating. The large tank capacity also reduces the pulsing you feel when a single-stage unit can't keep up, giving you a smoother, more consistent airflow for tools that need it, like a pneumatic grinder. On the flip side, if your primary use is occasional tire inflation, a few bursts of a nail gun, or occasional hobby-level projects, the 5 HP two-stage machine is overkill. A smaller, single-stage 23 HP compressor would cost less, sit on a lighter frame, and be easier to store. The extra horsepower and tank volume won't translate into faster job completion for low-intensity tasks, and you'll end up paying for capacity you never use. Another group that might want